back to another episode of Sit and Spin with me, your host, Joe Royal. And today on the show, something new from something old. And kind of, in a way, sticking a little bit with that 1991 theme that we seem to have been on with our last two episodes. Still kind of following through for this one. More on that in a minute. But today, we are talking about Scarred But Smarter, The Life and Times of Drivin and Cryin, which is the awesome new documentary about the band directed by Eric Von Haessler, or Haessler, sorry if I mispronounced the name, Eric, who spent 3 years making this film and chronicling the group's history in an attempt to find out why one of his favorite bands, and mine, had never quite enjoyed the type of mainstream national success he always thought they should. They did come close a little bit once, and again we'll get to that. Kind of ties in with the 1991 theme. But first, I'm going to kind of give you the condensed Reader's Digest version of the band, just in case you aren't familiar with them and don't know anything about them. This will kind of give you some groundwork. But after that, you should really watch this great documentary. It'll spell out the whole story for you. But this is how the story goes. The band was formed in 1985 when native Milwaukee singer-guitarist Kevin Kinney moved to Georgia and initially hooked up with a musician named Frank French. That kind of helped them work. We kind of stayed with him. They worked some songs together. Kevin started doing some folk shows. And then he hooked up with bassist Tim Nielsen, who was from the popular local band, the Night Porters. And the two started working together, collaborating, writing tunes together. And along with former Night Porters drummer Paul Lenz, they come up with a band called Drivin and Cryin, the name of which was chosen from the lyrics of one of Kevin's songs, because it kind of best described the sound of the band, with like one foot in a harder rocking sound and the other firmly in a folk country influenced camp. And in a way, it was at least partially the band's dual personality style that kind of made them hard to categorize and market, and a little bit more on that in a minute. They would later hook up with guitarist Buren Fowler, the late guitarist who the film is dedicated to, and drummer Jeff Sullivan for most of their most popular period of time. And those guys were followed by a succession of other guitarists and drummers, but the core duo always being Kinney and Nielsen. And also all during this time too, Kevin also maintained a solo career over the years. But they released their debut album, Scarred But Smarter, which also shares the name of the film, back in 1986. A great record that featured the title track. That was followed up in 1988 with Whisper Tames the Lion, which was their major label debut on Island Records. Island would later go back and reissue Scarred But Smarter. And this was produced by Anton Fear of the Golden Palominos and featured great tunes like Powerhouse and Can't Promise You the World. And it was their 1989 album, Honeysuckle Blue, that was my real introduction to the band. I actually caught them on 120 Minutes for the video for Honeysuckle Blue, which is the tune you're hearing right now, which kind of had some of the edge of Guns N' Roses, sort of like a little bit of Paradise City in it, but also had kind of that kind of folky country swing to it. And I went out and bought the record, and this was kind of sort of like the identity crisis problem of the band. When you first put the album on, there's a song called Ain't It Strange, and you almost feel like, did I buy the right record? Is this the right CD in here? Because it opens and it's like fiddles and banjo and violins and stuff. And then you just realize that's kind of the nature of the band. You'd have songs that would alternate between kind of this more country folk-esque thing and then back to harder stuff with songs like You Don't Know Me. And then you also had songs that kind of split the difference, like Honeysuckle Blue, as well as other great kind of country drinking tunes like Straight to Hell, a great album. This is still my favorite record by the band. Someday I'd like to find a nice vinyl copy of it, because I was never able to back in the day. I was all about CDs then, and now they're kind of harder to come by. But it was not until 1991, with the title track of their next album, Fly Me Courageous, that the band really first broke through into the mainstream. They just decided to go out as full-on commercial as they kind of could with this record, and ended up having a major hit with it, with the title track in 1991. Kind of came along right at the right time as the rock war was going on. And they also followed that up with a couple of other singles off this album, Build a Fire, which you might remember, and Let's Go Dancing. And that record did really well for them. That was about as much as they really broke through. And they followed that up in 93, which was a really interesting time in music, because like grunge was breaking, the style was changing, and they put out the record Smoke. Now, if this had a more commercial hard rockin' sound, this was even more so. But it ended up kind of not being the right sound at the right time, so the album didn't do as well. It was their last for Island. The band, they got let go from the label after that. But looking back on it now, it's still a really solid record. I appreciate it. And then it kind of took a little bit of time off, regrouped. Kevin went off to the solo record, and they came back with a new album called Wrapped in the Sky in 1995, and it was their first and only record for DGC Records Geffen. And this returned the band kind of more to their folk roots. It's a much more quieter, introspective album. They replaced Bjorn Fowler with a keyboard player named Joey Huffman, if you're familiar with him at all. And this is also a really solid record from their collection, but then again, didn't do as well, got dropped from Geffen, and then they went back to being the independent route again and came back in 1997 with their self-titled album, Drivin and Cryin. It's just a trio, but this is also still a solid record, and this kind of brings them back to more of the Mystery Road sound. And since then, they've had other releases, some greatest hits, some live albums, but their last full-length record was in 2009 with the Great American Bubble Factory. And since then, between 2012 and 2014, they've just released a series of EPs that kind of all start with songs, 4 from or about, like songs from the laundromat, songs for the turntable, things like that nature, which are all still really great. And that's kind of the condensed version of the band in a nutshell, so we say. But really what you want to do is, if you have never known about anything about Drivin and Cryin, or if you're a fan of them, you want to go out and pick this up, because if you are a fan, this is essentially needed in your collection. If not, great documentary if you're a big fan of music docs like I am to check out. And this also features interviews with all the band's members, as well as their contemporaries, people like Peter Buck from R.E.M., who worked a lot with the band. R.E.M. actually took him out on the road when Mystery Road was out. Ed Roland from Collective Soul, Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish, now with his own solo career, and also friends like Ty Pennington and other fans of the band and people who were around at the time that all this stuff was going on, as well as lots of live performances, archival footage, much of it never seen before, and new music videos, and a whole lot more stuff. If you have Amazon Prime, for instance, you can actually watch this movie for free if you have Amazon Prime, but it's worth going out and picking up the DVD for, because there's all sorts of bonus stuff that you're not going to see if you watch it on Amazon Prime. But just a solidly great documentary about one of my all-time favorite bands, Drivin and Cryin. It's out now. Pick it up, and that's the show this week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in as always, and we will catch you next time on Sit and Spin. Lots of great stuff coming up this month, so please tune back in. We'll catch you next time. Same bad time, same bad channel. See you then.